From WTDG Toledo, Bridges, with your host, Donnie Miller, connecting our community with information about issues and opportunities.
Hey, good Sunday morning and welcome to Bridges. I'm so glad to have you with us. You know, one of the major points of discussion in this time of controversy and confusion and just not knowing always what the right thing to do in our society is whether the Black church is still relevant to the Black community. For decades, without dispute, that institution has been the core of the Black community. And now we wonder, does it in fact have the same impact, the same leadership, the same influence on the community that it once had? Well, we're talking to three scholars, local scholars, on this topic this morning. We're talking to the Reverend Dr. Derek Arnold from Bethlehem Baptist. Welcome. It's very, very nice to have you here. Those of you who are regular watchers of Bridges will recognize the Reverend Dr. Donald Perryman. He's been with us on several occasions. We're happy to have you back today.
Thank you.
He is the pastor of the Center of Hope. And we have the Reverend Dr. Calvin Sweeney from Pinewood Tabernacle, his first time with us. And thank you. Oh, sorry, getting all tangled up here. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so I'm gonna ask the question, and we all know the answer, okay? But I need to ask the question. Do you think the Black church is still relevant to the Black community?
Yes, I believe it's very relevant.
Of course you do. And Pastor?
Without question.
I know, and Pastor.
I definitely concur.
All right, and what makes you all, that's the easiest question you're gonna get today. So it's the easiest part of this conversation. What makes you say that?
I believe that the message of the gospel is still relevant, and I believe people who come to church today deal with real life issues, and they're looking for answers. And I believe God's word has the answer to help them to rise above.
Somebody would say to you this, though: the harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we are still not saved. That is from, as you all know, Jeremiah 8:20. And you know, in support of that, they would say the civil rights bill has been passed, slavery has ended, but we are still seeing enormous issues when it comes to Black on Black crime, increases in HIV, the numbers of Black men going to jail, astronomical numbers, and which have a ripple effect on the rest of the issues in our society, educational deficiencies. All of those things are still very much occurring in our society. And not only are they occurring, they are getting worse. Mm-hmm. They are getting worse. So the charge to you all would be, or the question to you all would be, where are you in all of this? If you are in fact relevant, where are you in all of these discussions?
And I think that was a great observation, Donnie. The Black church, although it is not monolithic, it was founded, the Black church in America was founded as a response to social problems. Mm-hmm. And we have been very, very vocal as it relates to social problems up until about the 70s, and then we got silent.
Why? The 70s, in fact, was the time everybody was raising their voices around social injustice, and the Black church has always been the core of the fight for civil liberties. Why did that happen?
I think the church has to become refamiliarized, if I can say it that way, with the tenets of the Bible of justice and compassion and mercy, and really begin to preach those values and really begin to act out those values in the community. Because the picture that you painted about our community and the increase of crime, the increase of violence, the suicide rate and incarceration rates definitely say there's a need. It's saying that there's a society that has a sense of despair, despondency, hopelessness, lovelessness. And I think the church, the message of Jesus Christ, is the solution or the remedy to such a despondent soul. But we have to begin as a church and a church community to impact and engage the communities once again.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, Pastor Sweeney, because so much of what you read supports what you say. So much of what you read on this issue supports what you say, except this. There is a school of thought out there that says that the church perhaps encourages the embracing of oppression through the teaching that God is everything, that God is there, God can do everything but fail. We all know this, we hear it, we've all heard it growing up. God will be there, God can do everything but fail. It's all about God, He's in your life. Do you agree with that position?
No, I believe that every person in the church has a responsibility to live up to the mandate of the gospel. And I think the minister's job is to kind of engage and guide the course, but it's up to every member within that body to step up and live out the mandate. It's a personal call. It's a personal responsibility.
Then do you think we're failing in that responsibility?
I think.
Do you think the message from the pulpit isn't relevant to the issues that the folks in the congregation are facing?
I think that we talked about the 70s, commensurate with this this epidemic of crack into the community, crime, unemployment, a poverty that we had not seen before. At the same time, almost simultaneously, came a theology of prosperity, which we hyper-spiritualized materialism and almost gave consent to covetousness. And so our message began to shift away from civil rights and individuals into a pursuit of money. And as a result, people in our communities were not able to relate to that type of, they didn't see any change in their lives. They didn't see any change around the community where they lived, so they just disengaged. We have lost, we have doubled in the amount of people who no longer, or who have not even been to church, particularly young black men. So youth and women to a degree are no longer able to identify with the black church.
And speaking on the 70s, there was also a period of mistrust, authority with the government and with the church. And so the church has to regain that trust. And I think we have done so over the years.
Do you?
Yes.
Even though Pastor Perryman has just mentioned the fact that membership and attendance is declining, and that there's always been, at least from my limited perspective, and I'm basing that perspective on my church experience, there's always been, I think, an issue with encouraging black men into congregations and keeping them there. Most of the churches I've attended have been predominantly women and children. So even with that, at least in black churches, so even with that, you think you're regaining the trust? I
think to a certain level, we're regaining a level of trust with people, but it's a small percentage. I always go on the 20 to 80 rule.
You know, what's that mean?
You have 20% of the people who support 80% of the work of the church.
Okay. All right. All right. How do you change that?
I think we as a church begin to engage the community. We begin to come outside of our four walls, and we begin to engage the young men that are out there on the streets, and we begin to talk to them about how do they see themselves presently, how would they like to see themselves, and what is the message of the gospel of Jesus Christ, how does that fit, and how to make it relevant and applicable to their situation. And then to model to them what it's like to be, as men, modeling to the young men that are out there who haven't ever stepped foot into a church, why it's important to be in the church, because there's a disconnect. There's like a generational disconnect that why is the church relevant? So, you know, there is probably a thought in the community that is not relevant because there's a disconnect from a generation. And so we have to get out there in the community and help them to understand why this is relevant.
Yeah, and I want to say that all of you, the three of you, deserve tremendous accolades for your community activism. I want to make sure that you all know that these are three of the most present ministers in our community when it comes to social problems and social issues, and that is the reason that I'm excited to have these three gentlemen here today. But even as you say that, Pastor, we still in this community have the conversation about the lack of presence of ministers in the forefront of very critical life-changing issues. Instead of redeveloping neighborhoods, we're concerned about getting streets named after ourselves. Instead of fighting for equal employment, you know, we're concerned about building the bigger, better church. You know, instead of looking at ways that we can coalesce. We're looking at ways that we're doing things that separate your voices all the more. You know, the voices of the ministers in the Black community used to be the voices that drove that community. What has happened to you all? Where are you all? Not you all, but the bigger you all in this conversation.
I think that people are out there. People are out there. You know, it's not as many as we would like, and it's going to take a collective effort. It's going to take like-minded pastors getting out in front, outside their four walls and into the community, revitalizing the community, showing young men how to be real men, and those types of things. And then we have to lose some of our isms that still remain in the church. Classism, sexism, heterosexism, ageism, other ableness isms.
Right.
Those things are still within the Black church. Patriarchy rules still, and we have to lose some of those things and start speaking to issues such as social justice, HIV/AIDS, some of these types of things as well.
You know, you are absolutely right, because those are the things that are eating this community alive. Those are the things that are eating this community alive. We cannot encourage women to be confident and assured, and to sometimes, when you guys require it, put you in your places for the betterment of our own spirit if our church leaders don't value us as women. You know, you can't leave a church feeling unvalued and then go out and fight your fight in that community. Why are we still holding on to those things, those very things, that, just being one example, that really eat us alive? You know, the fact that we don't address HIV/AIDS consistently in the Black community is one of the reasons that the numbers in Lucas County are so extraordinarily high when compared to the rest of the state. I mean, I could go on and on and on.
Violence against women and
Absolutely.
against children.
Against children.
And there has been silence.
Silence.
There's been silence.
It's unacceptable.
Well, I think the minister has to put those issues on the agenda on Sundays. I think if the minister is in tune with what's going on in the community and has a heart or a passion for that, he or she will do that.
I think you're right. I want to talk about that a little bit more when we come back, okay? So you hold on to that thought? All right, we need to go away for just a second. We'll be right back. Stay with us.